Hello everybody, my name is Oksana. I am a mind transformation coach, founder of Soulful Gifts. And today I want to talk a little bit about inner conflict. There's another video talking about conflict with others, and I hope that you will listen to that. But right now I want to talk a little bit about our inner conflict and focus on why we suffer, because this inner conflict is what's causing us the suffering, causing us the emotional pain. And I think that you will all agree with me that each one of you went through that more than once in your life. So why is that happening? Why are we suffering? And there are, of course, a lot of different explanations, and what I'm going to tell you probably is not going to be something that you have never heard. But hopefully it's going to be a good reminder. Maybe for some of you it's going to be a different or new point of view. We grew up, since we're little, in the environment, and based on my experience, and as a mind transformation coach, I work with a lot of people. And what I've noticed is that regardless of the background, regardless of where people grew up, and I have clients who are coming from all different places in the world, the universal thing is that when we grow up, we're starting to get conditioned by our parents. And not to blame them because they don't know any better, that's how they were brought up. But as we're growing up, we are often told, without realizing how important that becomes later in our life, things like, you're a good girl, you're a bad boy, this is right, this is wrong, do this, don't do that. So we are, since we're little, taught how to judge, because good, bad, right, wrong, those are not discernments, and I will mention the difference a little bit later. And I'm not going to focus in this talk on the judgment of the world. I'm going to focus on judging ourselves, because that's where it starts. And then, of course, our inner world is what affects our outer world. So we then go through school, and that's where these things get cemented, because we are constantly graded there. And regardless which country you go to, you go through however many years of school, and you're being assigned a label of some kind, whether it's a percentage, it's a 1 through 5, A, B, C, etc., saying this is how you failed, or this is how good you are, how bad you are. And we get so used to it. And again, the system is like that pretty much everywhere in most of the world. And what we're learning from that is, furthermore, to say, okay, I'm not really good at something, or I am good at something based on someone telling me how good I am or how bad I am, right? So our parents decide that first, or caregivers, then our teachers in the school system decides afterwards. And so we start believing in it more and more. Now imagine if you were going through school and Jane at school would be looked at and said, hey Jane, this is your highest potential, this is the best way that Jane can be, this is the most fulfilled in terms of all your strength, in terms of all your talents, that you can be. And so based on that, where you're at is maybe about 10% of everything that you can do. And if you apply this or that, then you can get closer to your highest potential, to your highest manifestation. Now, that's really not judgment, right? This is more of an encouragement, where you realize that you can be the best Jane because you're Jane and nobody else can be Jane. And you also realize that right now you're not fulfilling all of your potential and you can do better. So it gives you the maybe the nice fuel to move forward. But nobody is expecting you to be Bill, because you're not Bill, you're Jane. And Bill has his own highest potential, and his highest potential has nothing to do with the strength and abilities that Jane has, right? Versus Bill, Jane, and everybody else get A, B, C, D, or F in math, and math is taught the same exact way. Or maybe you're labeled as a student with disabilities, or you're labeled as a student who is smarter than everybody else, which typically only adds more pressure on kids, where they feel like they're worse than others, or they feel that they have to do more because they are somehow identified as better than others. And again, it's usually based on judgments. So it gets cemented more. Then we go to college, and in college, again, we go through the same system. By then, we already have a very clear image of ourselves being, I'm a bad student, I'm not thinking clearly, or I'm good at math, or I am good, or I'm bad at math and I'm good at arts. And now the thing is, again, and we've heard it probably many times, everybody is absolutely different, and we're not all born to be great at math and physics and biology. We are all born with our own very unique structure, where each one of us is a universe. And nobody is teaching us that. Nobody is telling us that. What we're being taught is how to judge ourselves based on some standards, some external expectations that, to be honest, have been completely outdated a long time ago, right? And nobody teaches our parents how to do that. Nobody teaches our teachers how to do that. So then we go to, a lot of us go through the corporate world. And then what happens there is that we're graded again. You're a good employee, you're a bad employee. This is your mark, this is your score. And here it becomes something that becomes even more important, because now it's not only whether you get through school or not, whether you get to college or not. Now, based on that, we're going to be paying you money. And so money is the energy that is associated with the self, with worth, right? With value. And so basically what we feel like is that if I'm a good employee, because I've done A, B, C, D, that is now expected from my employer, the company that decided for whatever reason that if you're in this position, you are supposed to be doing A, B, C, D and on this level. And again, I might be doing A, B, C, D in a completely different way than you, and I will, because we're all different. And my way or your way is not better or worse, they're just different, and each one of us can bring something beneficial and useful to the company, but that's not what's happening. We're again being judged and assessed based on the expectations that are external. And at this point now, we are being rewarded with money. And so that goes into our subconscious as the message: I am worth this much because I am this good or this bad. And so at this point, we already get it so cemented in us that it's really hard for us to step outside. And again, nobody taught us anything different. Look within and see, or even imagine, if I let go of all this information, of all these expectations, of all these programs that I grew up with, day by day, year by year, and see what is my true value. Where do I even look to find it? Is it based on someone else's expectations? And by the way, another thing that is really big, especially in some cultures that I came across a lot, is some parents tell their kids, it is not up to you to decide how good you are. It is up to somebody else to figure it out. So basically, it's not your job to see how valuable you are. It is not your job to see your own life, to see your own worth. Someone else has, for some reason, more power, more ability to identify it for you. Okay? And again, I'm not talking about us seeing our value from the selfishness and ego standpoint and saying I'm inferior to others, or I'm interior to others. I'm talking about us knowing how to even look within, look inside, let go of all those judgments and all those expectations, and accept ourselves for who we are. Accept ourselves in the most compassionate, kind manner, and allow ourselves to make mistakes, and allow ourselves to be not perfect, because we're not, and we're not supposed to. Nobody is, even though a lot of us are striving, a lot of us are thriving to be perfect. And I'll have another talk about perfectionism. That's really interesting phenomenon. So we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to look inside. And unfortunately, and it's not just now, but in this day and age, I think it's getting really hard. We don't know how to unquiet our mind to have that state of peace and calmness inside, to even look deeper within. And for that, we do need to have a quiet mind. And that's why meditations can be really powerful. So that was the reason why I have included the self-acceptance as part of the Know Your True Self class that I have created a few years ago and been teaching it, and a lot of other coaches have been teaching it, because that is such an important aspect of our life, and that is such an important aspect for us not to have this inner conflict, not to have this inner struggle, and obviously not to be in this state of suffering. We suffer because we feel we do not adhere to some standards that we have created for ourselves based on expectations that were placed on us externally day after day, year after year, based on the judgment. And by the way, the difference between judgment and discernment is that judgment is polarizing things. This is good or bad, right or wrong. Discernment is seeing the difference without judging one or another being better or worse. And a lot of people actually, based on my practice, don't know about the difference. So when you look at something and say, I'm not a great artist, and that's okay, I accept that. I am wonderful at making everybody laugh, and that's my talent. Or I can solve a problem very quickly. However, I am not really familiar with how to build something with my hands, or it doesn't really work out for me this way because I perceive the world through feelings and sensations. So realizing what it is that is your internal world, embracing it, looking deeper within, and being okay with your values being yours and they're not defined by someone else, and looking for it more, embracing it more, allowing yourself that more, allowing yourself to be different, because the truth is you are. That's the reality. You're different from everybody else. I'm different from everybody else. And if you're not accepting it yourself, nobody else is going to accept it for you. Or even if someone else accepts it for you, you're not really, it's not really making any difference, right? So the suffering is always coming from within. When we are not matching our expectations of ourselves based on expectations of others to the reality that we see. And we say, I'm supposed to be this, but I'm just that. When you release that expectation of yourself and you start looking for ways to accept yourself and embrace yourself instead of the ways to continue judging yourself, and that's the inner conversation that's happening all the time, and you start listening to yourself. And how to learn that, you can also find, if you would like, the practical ways to do it at our class, the Know Your True Self class. But I hope that you will get something out of this video, and hopefully will start looking at yourself with a little bit more kindness, a little bit more compassion, a little bit more understanding, and more acceptance. I hope that you choose to stay aware. Thank you.